Welcome to Subject to Change. We're here with Bill Bishop to talk about bicycling.
Well, I was going to say you look great, but I wasn't sure if my memory was playing tricks on me or whether you actually looked great. Let's just assume you look great.
It's really about health and happiness.
Oh, we'll just go with that either way.
Either way. No, that's awesome. And it changes how you feel too when you're outside more.
Yes.
Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. When you see the little microphone in the lower right, click on that to learn more. We're so glad you're here.
I've been a bicyclist since a girl who lived next door to me taught me how to ride a bike when I was like 6 years old.
Yay.
And so I've always enjoyed bicycling. There were periods where I didn't do much of it. When I went to college, I went to the University of Florida, which, besides the fact that it rains every day at 4 o'clock, otherwise it's a great place to ride a bike. And I would ride to campus every day. I would ride around campus.
It was an amazing phenomenon.
And if you've never been on a huge university campus in between classes and had to get from A to B, it's just an amazing phenomenon where you've got all these people walking and riding bikes, and somehow none of them bump into each other. They all just happen to know where to go, almost like a beehive, And then when COVID, so I've always had bicycles, and then when COVID came along, though, it really was an opportunity for me to be more deliberate about doing it for both fun and exercise. And so I have a garage full of bicycles. They don't all work, but they all could work. Because one of the things that fascinates me about bicycles, so I'm a mechanical engineer by training.
Human plus machine.
To me, bicycles are kind of the ultimate incarnation of human combined with machine. So you have
I love it.
Very simple. You can have very, very simple machines, but they are customized to work as flawlessly and efficiently as possible with a person. And there are a few things like that, but I think the bicycle, more than anything, just kind of encompasses that kind of fascinating quality about engineering.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's not, you can't over technologize. You can't. There's not going to be technology that really kind of does away with what a bicycle does, because you need a physical thing that supports your body and helps transport you from A to B, preferably with nothing but human power. Although we can certainly talk about electric bicycles and their role in what they can do as well. But yeah, and you can pull a 50-year-old bicycle off the shelf, and it's not going to operate. It's basically not that different from what you go to the store and buy today. So those, that's just fascinating to me as an engineer and as a person that's always trying to think about the most efficient ways to do something, and what's the most that we can do with the least amount of energy, and certainly if we can avoid fossil fuels altogether. So bicycles are just a perfect example of that.
Yeah. I love seeing, all right, first at the New York State Museum, they've got a little kind of boardwalk section that you can walk through, and they have a couple of different older bikes there, like a tricycle from maybe the 1890s, 1910s. I don't know, I'm making the years are probably wrong, but kind of a tricycle that has a little cargo piece on it. And it makes me think of when I see people on the Corning Trail between Troy and Albany, and they've got a little trailer, and sometimes it's got a couple of kids in it, sometimes it's got a couple of dogs in it, sometimes it's got like their life stuff in there because they actually live with their bike and their trailer. That's kind of cool. When I worked at Mystic Seaport Museum, I had the chance to ride one of those bicycles that was like 6 feet tall, that had the big wheel in the front and the little
No
in the back.
way.
Chains and gears.
Oh my God, that's like death on a stick. Really, there's no way to control that. I had to start by jumping onto it from a porch, and I had to stop by jumping off of it onto a porch. It's just like, no, but it was so much fun. I mean,
Why
and I
was
think of
that
Kermit the
design?
Frog.
Why
You
was
know,
that
I don't
design
know.
something that
Bill might
ever-
know.
Yeah,
Yes.
why?
Because
tell me.
they hadn't figured out how to use chains and gears yet. So they were basically huge
The
big
big
wheels.
Yeah.
So the crank was connected directly to the hub of the front wheel.
Yeah.
And as you turned it, you were literally, it was just a direct coupling to that wheel. So the bigger the wheel, the faster you could go. Because it
Oh.
was a
Otherwise, you had
1-to-1
little
ratio.
wheels and you were doing like this with your feet. You know, but a big wheel gave you the chance to do this.
Exactly.
I'm dumb question because I just don't have the background. How'd you brake? Did they have
you
brakes?
You
Really?
really didn't. This one was weird. Is you had to slow down your pedaling in order to brake. And so if you were going down a hill, this particular model had no braking system. And it was purely you keeping the tension on the pedals that would force the slowing of the bicycle. But that was very hard to do. Very hard to do.
Some of them did have a type of brake. I think they called them spoon brakes, but they were basically just a flat piece of metal that pressed against the outside of the rubber wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it just physically mashed against the tire to try to slow that wheel down. But they were very, those types of bicycles were very hard to stop and very easy to do an end over. If you hit anything, a fairly big rock or a stump or a log or anything, you were just, you were flying.
Yeah. I can see that.
I read a thing about the movie Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, where Paul Newman did all the stunts on that bicycle in the scene because the stuntman couldn't figure out how to do any of them. Which I thought was bicycles fascinate me. I mean, it's just so cool.
I'm probably going to be doing a presentation at the engineering symposium in Rochester in April, specific to bicycles and the engineering of them and their role in climate change mitigation. So,
oh my God, that's awesome.
So I'm pretty excited about that, and I'm starting to put together the slides and the
bikes and climate change.
Do you feel that
cool.
cities are doing their part to encourage biking more as a mode of transportation?
I'm sure they're trying, and it's really kind of a city by city thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. I don't see it coming from state government in New York, but there are certainly cities that do a better job of it. I didn't go to school in Ithaca, but I imagine they're pretty good at it. I know New York City kind of has a love-hate relationship, I think, with bicycles.
Mm-hmm.
They put in more bike lanes, and then they get more pushback about putting in bike lanes. And and the last time I went there, I specifically took time to rent a bicycle, and so that I could ride around Manhattan. And
very cool.
I'm comfortable riding in traffic and riding in roads. So I actually was looking forward to it and kind of fancying myself as like a bicycle messenger in New York City, and just had fun with it. And I was riding in the traffic lanes in between buses and stuff. And then I saw the bike lane on the left side of the road, which is not where it's usually right on the right. And I suddenly realized I was doing it wrong because
So
everybody
funny.
else. Everybody was crowded into the bike lane, which is way off to the left. And I'm like, well, that seems odd, but I guess when in New York. So I did move over there, but that was a blast, just riding through New York City. And so that's definitely our state's example of where we have the most bicycle culture, I think. But I think cities can certainly do more and should do more,
Yeah.
to genuinely facilitate and promote bicycle use. And there are a lot of reasons for that, not just for energy, but for cutting down traffic, making roads safer, making communities more livable, giving more of a sense of space, to use an architect's description. People just like to be in a place where you can ride a bike without, fearing for your life. And where
Yeah,
you can
every
actually, get from A to B and maybe run some errands and just enjoy being outdoors.
Every time I go to a city for a conference or something, I try and use whatever share bike system is there. So I've ridden the city bike in New York. I've ridden bikes in Boston and in Austin and in Toronto. And in San Diego, my son and I rented little electric scooters. That was kind of fun, the Lime scooters or whatever. I ride to work here in Albany, and it's funny. I think my biggest problem is that there are the roads that are labeled with share rows and the signs that say share the roads with bicycles. That's fine. But every single road under 30 miles an hour is supposed to be also used by bicycles. And people constantly yell at me when I'm on those roads. They're like, get on the sidewalk. It's not allowed in Albany by law for me to bicycle on the sidewalk. Yeah. And they treat it, some people get really aggressive when you're on the road, on roads you're allowed to be on. It's so weird to me. Yeah. Like just every sign should say share the roads.
Yeah.
It should be all roads.
Yeah. When I was thinking about what I might want to talk about for this podcast, I was thinking about bicycling and how I was going to say, I don't know that I've ever had a day where I regretted going out on a bike ride.
Yeah.
But then I did remember maybe 2 or 3 times that because of a person in a motor vehicle, it ruined my ride. And fortunately not physically, but I had a person in a truck pass me and then slow down just to yell at me and tell me, and treat me like an idiot, like you're gonna get yourself killed, like it just the nerve, just it infuriated me.
Oh my gosh.
So the thing that I think cities should do more of, and it could go up to the state level as well, is when anybody's getting their driver's license and when they have to do defensive driving classes, it should be mandatory that there's a section about bicycling and about the rights of bicyclists and responsibilities of bicyclists.
There needs to be mutual respect.
I totally agree. One of the things, I lived in the Netherlands for a little while, so anytime you want insights about bicycling in the Netherlands, let me know. My husband's Dutch. But one of the things that I notice in the Netherlands, and I noticed when I lived there, is the reason, the roads are so much narrower and people are so respectful. Like, it's not like there are separate bike routes everywhere. There are only separate bike routes in the city and on certain routes, and then the rest of the roads are just shared. And the reason that it works is because every single driver has at some point been on a bicycle, and they know what it's like to be on a bicycle. And every single bicyclist has not been in a car. Some bicyclists never get their driver's license. My in-laws didn't have their driver's licenses. They just bicycled everywhere. But I think that that's one of the biggest differences, is that people here, so many drivers have never actually bicycled, so they don't understand the anxiety, the fear factor, the space that's needed, the repercussions of yelling at someone out your window. I had somebody throw a cigarette in my face. They didn't do it intentionally, but then they didn't apologize when it landed right in my face, because they were just kicking it out their passenger side window and they had just passed me and didn't even see me. Craziness.
I'm sorry that happened to you, but I really like how you talk about the experience of just how important it is to have that riding experience, and then how that informs how you drive.
It's time for a royal decree.
Yeah.
And if I were king and I could just decree it, I would require 500 miles of bicycle riding before you could get your driver's license
There you go.
across the
That's
board.
pretty cool.
You've got to have that that bicycle experience, because you really see the road differently on a bicycle, and
Yeah.
you really
Oh my God,
have a
that's awesome.
completely different sense of space and movement and dynamics with traffic on a
And
bicycle.
speed. Right?
Speed. It
And
really
rain.
informs you so much. So yes, that would be my royal decree.
I kind of like that royal decree. And I think
Yeah.
it does a couple things. One, it does all the things that you just said. And two, quite frankly, I bet you a lot of people would realize that bicycling is something that they can do more often than they currently do. I think that's the other thing. I didn't start off riding to work every day because I decided tomorrow I'm going to start riding to work every day. I said, gee, I wonder if I can find a good route to work. Let me try it. And like 3 months later, I was like, well, you know what? Maybe I'll try not to use a car this week. And then, you know what I mean? You have to realize that it's just a process of getting comfortable.
Connecting.
And then the side note of all the bicycling routes, this is my pet peeve, is all the bicycling routes that like don't connect to each other.
Yeah.
There's like the whole thing about you seeing in New York that the bicycling was on the other side of the road. And I think that when you create, you know what, I'm slowly getting over this, but I have this bias against separate bike routes. Like if there's a separate bicycling lane next to a road, but it's only on one side of the road, and then on the way back, like I have to get off my bike, use the pedestrian crosswalk to cross the road twice to get to the route that I need to go home. Those kind of things don't make sense to me, but I'm trying to accept that they're incremental improvements that will get better over time.
Yep.
Maybe. So
Yeah, those
Lauren,
can
I
be
cut you off.
frustrating.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Lauren.
I didn't even know what I was going to ask or say.
Totally fair.
Yeah, there's this a lot of people have this idea that, you know, this false idea that bicyclists are supposed to be on the sidewalk, and you know that's just wrong.
It is wrong. I do know that. I'm not a cyclist. I actually had a bike injury when I was younger, and I've been a little skittish about getting back on ever since.
Fair, totally fair.
But Jody knows that I'm moving from suburbs into the city, and it is something that, especially because I live in what's called like a village in the city. So like we actually have like our own little pocket of like a main street in a town, and I'm very close to it. It would be very convenient to bike.
Cool.
I'd like to try, and maybe I can get a little bit more comfortable with it. Hopefully I don't have any of the yelling and the cigarette flicking on the very first couple of times out.
No,
that
and-
might turn me off to it, but
Seriously, I've done thousands of miles. I've done 3,000 miles on my Segway, and I don't use that very much at all. I do mostly bicycling. And so one cigarette flick and, you know, one or two yells out the window. I mean, overall, it's not a big intrusion. It's just that they stick with you longer. You know?
Mhm.
The good
Mhm.
rides, you know, are just like good rides. The ones where someone's being an ass tend to like be prominent.
yeah,
What, Jody?
like
What do you,
days.
Jody? What do you do when people honk at you?
I inwardly seethe, and sometimes I throw them a nice little eagle, but not often because I don't want to get beat up. And I just go on my way.
It's time to try a polite hello.
I figure that probably they're upset with me, but since I don't have proof of that, I treat them as though they're just greeting me and saying hi,
Yeah,
and so I do
and
a
you just
polite
You
wave.
wave
wave.
back.
Just wait.
Yeah. So,
Hey, how's it going?
That's awesome. Okay.
and then I know if
That's
they
what I'm
are
gonna do.
kind of angry at me, that I'm just kind of aggravating it, and turning it around at them. So, yeah.
I think I like that
Struggle
assumption.
with.
It's like if I don't know if someone's insulting me, I just kind of take it as a compliment because why not? So maybe I should have that attitude when I'm on a bike.
And it's a larger issue.
I think that
Absolutely.
this is a signifier of like really an actually larger issue with our society, which is like, what are we doing? If we're on a bike, what are we doing that is so horrific that it's so, creating so much anger that what's happening to the person in the car that they're getting this reaction from somebody on a bike? And what do we need to be doing? What could we change about our society to maybe just say like, oh, like that person's over there and it's okay. I don't,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a
Yeah.
fly. Like a fly is annoying when it's in your face, but if it's over there, it's like not really anything.
The first time I rode my Segway downtown, because I won a Segway. It's like the only thing I've ever won in my life. I won it right after we moved into Albany. And I was literally going 3 miles away to my work. So it was like perfect Segway transit, right? So the first time I used the Segway, and I was very nervous, and I had the helmet and I was wearing bright colors, and I'm like, okay, I'm standing here on my Segway. Some person yelled at their window, expletive, get some exercise, you fat, whatever. And I'm thinking, you're in a car. Like,
Right.
what is this? At least I'm standing. What is,
Yeah.
I think they were
are you
just jealous
eating
of your
chips and
Segway.
drinking beer? Oh my God. It was just like, and it's amazing. It was so different for people to see me on a Segway. They were really insulted by the fact that I was doing something that different from what they were ready to see. And it happened, probably I had more encounters on my Segway, insulting encounters about get on the sidewalk, what the hell are you doing? You're such a dick. Why are you out here on that thing? I mean, just like, really? I don't understand. I'm standing here. Like, what? How have I offended you? It's just so funny to me. It made me nervous in real time, but post event, I'm like, oh, that was hysterical that I can offend someone seriously without even trying.
Is it jealousy that we're cage free?
Yeah.
This has
trying.
never occurred to me until just now. But I wondered, Lauren, to your question of why is that and what can we change? I almost wonder, when you're in a car or a truck and you're driving and everybody else is in a car or a truck, it's almost like you're in a cage and everybody else is in a cage, both literally and figuratively. And that person on a bike or a Segway or walking is free, and they're not in a
Free.
cage.
Wow.
And it almost makes you, you see that, and it's just so kind of shocking. It irritates you. It's like, how come you're not in a cage with the rest of us?
Wow.
What gives you the
I can
right to be
see
out
that.
there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see
So
that
they're
as
angry
well.
about their life choices.
It just
So
in
they
the
take it out
instant,
on you.
In an instant.
in that instant, when you
Yeah.
see it, it's like, how are you so special where you don't have to be enclosed like the rest of us?
I read
It's-
this story once about this guy who was decided that he wanted to be a better basketball player. So he put weights on his ankles so he could be pressured to use more energy to learn to jump and strengthen his leg muscles. And he started getting angry at other players because they were able to jump higher than him, even though he was the one who made the choice to put those weights on his ankles. And it took someone else intervening and saying, look, nobody's making you wear those ankle weights. You can take them off whenever you want. Why don't you? for him to like be, oh my, I can't. And I wonder if that's what some of the conveniences that we have in our life end up being ankle weights. They had a purpose at one point, but maybe
Mhm.
we've outlived their purpose and we're just so used to them, we think we can't take them off.
Yeah.
And everyone else is doing something different. And why can't we do that? Well, we can, we just haven't.
There are a lot of standards and assumptions.
Yep.
And along that same theme, I think one thing that, again, going back to COVID, what COVID has taught us, or one of the potential lessons, is, putting things in context and kind of the overall pace of life. And, just this sudden realization that, why maybe I don't have to go to an office on the other side of town 5 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And, it just kind of really reevaluating these standards and assumptions that we've all grown up with and lived throughout our entire lives. And all of a sudden you do it differently, and it's not the end of the world. And it's actually kind of beneficial in many ways. And I think kind of driving a car versus walking and biking is kind of in that same category where, a lot of people just by habit will get in a car no matter where they have to go, even if it's around the corner. And even if they're not in a hurry, if you just
Right.
be a little more deliberate and mindful and think about what you're doing, maybe you don't have to run that errand today. Maybe you can combine errands. Maybe you can walk there, ride there, go with somebody else, etc.
We're bucking habits and expectations.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's a scene in the movie LA Story by Steve Martin. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie. And he gets in his car and he starts it up and he leaves the driver's side open and he kind of just rolls the car forward and his foot is outside the door. And then he stops 2 houses down at his best friend's house and gets out of the car and turns off the car to go into his friend's house. But he's in LA, so he can't possibly walk to his friend's house. Just not cool. I love that little story. I think that's so funny. But yeah, even regarding like tomorrow I have a meeting. It's about maybe 2 miles from here. So I'll bike there or I'll walk there. 2 miles isn't that far. And on days when I can do that, I'm like, well, maybe I won't do yoga this morning, or maybe I won't go for that walk after work. It's part of my exercise routine. It's all good.
It counts. Yeah.
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 This is awesome. I love that the conversation has gone a different route than I expected. It's kind of cool. I know stuff about you, Bill, that I didn't know before. This is even better.
Thanks again for joining us for Subject to Change. Take care.
Maybe on our next one, I'll have like a new bike helmet and I can show you and say, I rode down to the grocery store or something.
That's very cool.
That'll be my goal.
Awesome. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a bike. You can think about a scooter too. That might be more comfortable. I don't know.
I do like scooters.
Maybe not a skateboard, a scooter, you have something to hold on to.
Yeah, scooters are fun. I could do a scooter.
Yeah, and say hi to all our buds at Pathfinder.
I certainly will. And Helen will love to get whatever you put together.
Yeah.